Amend this bill to the House. Thank you.
I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a call on the Climate Change Response, Emissions Trading and Other Matters Amendment Bill. And as we have already said in this House before, and our leader, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, spoke on this a couple of months ago, New Zealand First does not support this ETS scheme or this Emissions Trading and Other Matters Amendment Bill. Basically, the emissions trading scheme is just another tax on the people of New Zealand and on the businesses of New Zealand. New Zealand First does not subscribe to a Wall Street takeover of New Zealand. The Merrill Lynch money traders of this world should not be standing to gain hugely from any sorts of emissions trading scheme. We have money launderers around the world in the likes of New York, London, Frankfurt and Shanghai, and they are the ones that just stand to make more money from any emissions trading scheme that is put in place. I can recall when I was in the export field, the big thing at the time was ISO 9000, another scheme that was going to supposedly be the big bee's knees of everything, and New Zealand companies, New Zealand corporates and corporates all over the world were going to become ISO 9000 accredited, and it was going to mean that you met all these new various standards and schemes in terms of all sorts of things, including environmental controls on your companies to ensure that you were a good corporate citizen in the environment. Again, it was a bit of a sham because everybody did it, but at the end of the day, nothing really came out of it. It was just a way for people who were running the standard scheme, who were people who were coming and doing the audits on the companies and on the corporations, made a huge amount of money, but at the end of the day, it really did not have any great outcome for New Zealand exporters and New Zealand corporates. And we always said at the time it would simply have been better if New Zealand companies had better internal audit systems rather than having to spend a huge amount of money on this tradable scheme around the world to have international standards. This serves this ETS scheme and what we're looking at today also to turn environmental protection into a carbon credit bank, to make environmentalism a speculative business. In other words, they're issuing tradable credits, verging almost on a Ponzi scheme, so that good money that's taken from New Zealand ends up paying for the wrongs of other countries and other polluters around the world. There are much better mechanisms for New Zealand than uncontrollable financial machinations such as an emissions trading scheme. This could end up costing this country more than $2 billion that New Zealand simply cannot afford. Again, to be supposedly a world leader in the emissions trading scheme, why would New Zealand put itself on a limb, put more than $2 billion into something when we simply cannot afford it at this stage, and where so many other countries aren't having a bar of it? These funds should be retained in New Zealand as New Zealand's first policy in order to provide funds to tackle our own emissions and our own pollution here in this country. We should be applying environmental levies here in New Zealand to ensure that New Zealand is kept 100% pure. I lodged a written question today to the Associate Minister of Transport as an example and said, what is the percentage breakdown of New Zealand's bus and truck fleet in each of the Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, Euro 4 and Euro 5 engine categories? And what initiatives is the Associate Minister taking to introduce available technologies to reduce diesel emissions on those older 1 and older 2 Euro-powered bus and trucks? And it's amazing that the response from the Minister, because this was a response that came to a letter from a constituent last week, said that so I understand that air pollution is important, but I'm currently looking at the process of amending the 2007 Vehicle Exhaust Emissions Rule. However, I understand the previous Minister of Transport and officials of the Ministry of Transport have already advised you that it is not the role of the Ministry to test products regardless of their potential benefits. I'm also told that you've been advised that there are no funds available to carry out any testing or research in this area. So here we have, New Zealand citizens, New Zealand corporates trying to look at ways that emissions can be controlled. Diesel emissions are a major problem for this country, trying to sort of get on top of something like that where old buses, old trucks are polluting our environment, but basically being told that it's not really something that we have any interest in or have. So in other words, Mr Speaker, what we're seeing is that on the one hand the government is wanting to get into all these various schemes to send New Zealand's money offshore to Ponzi schemes around the world on emissions trading, But here in this situation where there are people coming out with practical solutions to address our own emissions in this country, they really don't want to give much credence to it at all. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First maintains that the state must strike a balance between economic progress and appropriate environmental goals. The emissions trading scheme does not decrease emissions, it just trades them and moves them around to those economies that can afford to buy carbon credits. The emissions trading scheme devised by this government is totally unsustainable. It is nothing more than another tax on the people and production of New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First does not support this bill, and once again we are seeing good New Zealand money going down the drain.
Mr. Speaker.